Her father almost lost his life because of her. Let's find out how it happened together. Hey friends, welcome to another amazing journey into this popular Nigerian movie. It's packed with valuable lessons and is highly educative. Trust me, this one will keep you at the edge of your seat. So why don't you grab some popcorn as we dive into this captivating Nigerian movie? Please don't forget to like, comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe. On this fateful day, Chief, a wealthy and respected man, was seated having a discussion with Alhaji about the hotel he wanted to invest in. Chief assured him that his daughter would be able to manage the business properly because she was very smart. After much conversation, Alhaji left. The following day, China arrived in Lagos, Nigeria, but she wasn't happy with the car that came to pick her up. Seeing that there were better cars available, she started yelling at the security guard and complaining. She didn't even appreciate the maid who had come to welcome her. After spending 2 years in China, she had become unbearably rude. She walked with the maid, who was helping her with her bags, as Chief gave her a warm hug. But still, she wasn't happy about being back in Nigeria. She kept complaining about everything while her father, who was in a hurry, told her to go inside and rest before he left the house. That same night, Chief and China were having dinner while discussing the hotel. However, she kept complaining, questioning her father on why he couldn't just sell the hotel and build a better one in a more lucrative area. Or better still, give her the money so she could get a better place in China. After much back and forth, it became clear that China had no interest in the hotel. The discussion turned into an argument, and in anger, China stormed out of the house. Chief, furious, called out to Immaculata, the housemaid, telling her to lock the gate, but she managed to calm him down. China arrived at Ken's bar, where she and Ken hugged each other excitedly. They laughed, teased each other, and started chatting. A few minutes later, they were still seated, laughing and discussing how her father wanted to sell his hotel. They made jokes about it before moving on to other conversations. 2 days later, China and her boyfriend, Patrick, were at a restaurant eating and chatting. The following morning, China was in the living room watching a movie when her dad walked in and switched off the TV. He informed her that Alhaji would be coming over and that he wanted her to be present very early in the morning. Although she wasn't happy about it, she had no choice. The next morning, just as China was already prepared, she received a call from Patrick. As they chatted, she vented her frustrations to him through the conversation, unaware that Alhaji was eavesdropping. Feeling used and betrayed, Alhaji stormed straight to Chief and expressed his anger, ultimately backing out of the deal. Chief, now extremely furious, knew that China had done something terrible. He confronted her, yelling at her for what she had done. But despite seeing the disappointment in her father's eyes, China showed no remorse for her actions. Afterward, she went to Ken's bar to cool off, discussing the issue with him. While they were talking, Ken's girlfriend, Kasi, arrived. They exchanged pleasantries, and after a brief chat, Kasi left in a hurry due to an emergency call, leaving Ken and China to continue their discussion. The following night, China was spending time with Patrick when he told her he wanted her to meet his mom. However, her reaction left him shocked, and his mood instantly changed. The next morning, China walked into her room and was surprised to see her dad there. He told her that he thought she needed therapy. Shocked, China insisted she didn't need therapy because she was perfectly fine. Her father, however, gave her a look that made it clear she had no choice. He then walked out of the room. The following day, China was ready to go out but couldn't find her car keys. Her father had already locked them in his room. 2 days later, China was already with the therapist. However, as the therapist asked her some questions, China became annoyed. She was impatient because she believed there was nothing wrong with her. Frustrated, she lashed out at the therapist with insulting words before storming out, leaving the woman in shock. That night, Chief heard what had happened and was very upset. The next evening, China and Patrick went to see his mom, but to her shock, Patrick's mom turned out to be the therapist. Seeing China, the woman was lost for words. She immediately took China aside and warned her to stay away from her son. Later at the dinner table, they were all eating when the therapist asked China a simple question, but in a roundabout way. Instead of answering, China insulted the meal, which led to an argument. Upset, she walked outside, waiting for Patrick to take her home. However, Patrick was not happy with how she had spoken to his mom in his presence. Right there and then, he broke up with her. The next morning, China was in the living room scrolling through her phone when her dad came downstairs. He informed her that they had found another investor, but he really didn't want to lose this one. If the deal fell through, the bank would take 90% of the hotel. The following morning, China was already at the hotel when she got into an argument with a man who politely asked her to move her car slightly so he could drive out without stress. Instead of complying, China hurled insulting words at him. Shockingly, when she went inside, she was surprised to see the same man she had just insulted. The moment he saw her, he immediately declined the offer and left. This made Chief furious, and he yelled at her. Right then and there, they got into a heated argument, and China stormed out, deciding to move her belongings to Ken's house. When she arrived at Ken's house, he welcomed her warmly and ensured she was comfortable. That same night, China had fallen asleep with the plate she had used for dinner still on the bed. When Ken walked in and saw the mess, he shook his head in disappointment before picking up the plate himself. The following day, China was already enjoying her freedom and having a good time alone. That evening, Patrick was at the bar when his girlfriend came to check on him. They chatted, but she was clearly not happy about China staying at her boyfriend's house, especially after what she saw when she visited. The place was so cluttered and dirty that she was disgusted. However, Ken defended China's attitude, trying to explain it to her. That same evening, China was in the kitchen looking for something to eat when Patrick's girlfriend walked in and confronted her, demanding to know her intentions in staying at her boyfriend's house. But China simply laughed it off, saying that she could never date Ken because he was not her type. However, Ken overheard their conversation and was deeply hurt by what China said. Later, he went downstairs, licking an ice cream when China came to join him, but his mood remained unchanged. Sensing something was wrong, China asked him what the problem was. Ken then opened up about what he had heard, expressing his frustration before heading back upstairs. The following day, at Ken's bar, his girlfriend insisted that he should kick China out of his house. However, he refused, explaining that they had been close friends since their school days, and he didn't want to hurt her. This made his girlfriend upset, as she believed he was falling in love with China. In anger, she broke up with him and left. That night, Ken came home drunk and started misbehaving around China. However, she managed to get up and leave him alone on the bed. The next morning, when he woke up, he was surprised to find himself in China's room. Just then, China came out of the restroom, teasing him about his drunken state. As they were chatting, she suddenly received a call from the hospital informing her that her father had been involved in an accident. Panicking, she quickly ran to change her clothes and rushed to the hospital. Upon arriving at the hospital, she broke down in tears as the doctor explained the critical condition of her father. The pain overwhelmed her, and she began crying again while Ken tried to console her. The following day, Chief's lawyer arrived and discussed the situation with China, informing her that the bank had given them only 30 days to find an investor. Otherwise, the bank would take over the hotel. Later that day, China confided in Ken, expressing her feelings and frustration about the entire situation. She didn't know what to do. The next day, China went to a restaurant to meet the same man she had insulted before her father's predicament. They had a discussion, and the man told her that he would only invest in the hotel if she agreed to work for his company first. But in the end, the deal didn't work out, and she left angrily. Arriving at Ken's bar, she was in a bad mood, clearly unhappy with how things had turned out. Ken, however, encouraged her to go back and try again. The next day, China met with the investor again and sincerely apologized for the way she had spoken to him. She also agreed to his offer. The following day, China reported to the hotel, where she was given the rules and regulations. Although she found it difficult to accept, she was reminded that if she didn't comply, she would lose everything. A moment later, China was already working as a waitress, serving customers. At one point, she accidentally spilled a drink on a guest's outfit. Panicked, she quickly ran away to avoid any trouble. A few minutes later, China had dozed off when the manager came to wake her up. Meanwhile, the investor was watching everything through the CCTV cameras. Startled, she woke up and began looking around for something that wasn't even missing before she got back to work. That night, when she got home, Ken helped her by giving her a leg massage as she complained about how exhausting the job was. The next day at work, a customer who wanted to book a room started asking ridiculous questions that irritated China. The manager and other workers noticed the tension and stepped in to handle the situation. The following day, she went to the hospital to see her father. Crying, she asked him several questions, hoping for answers. 2 days later, China was in the kitchen cutting tomatoes when one of the staff members stormed in, yelling at the top of his voice about something she had done wrong. Confused and overwhelmed, she ran around in a panic before the staff member finally shouted at her to leave the kitchen. That night, China and Ken were in the bedroom, chatting, when Ken got up to go outside for some fresh air. The next day, while working, China went to serve a customer in his room, but things took a dangerous turn when the man tried to assault her. Moments later, the police arrived and arrested him. The investor later apologized for what had happened. Not long after, Ken arrived, and China ran to hug him tightly before they both left the hotel. That night, China and Ken were in the room. As he tried to comfort her, emotions ran high, and in the heat of the moment, they kissed each other. The next day, as usual, China went to serve a customer in the room. Just as she was about to leave, the woman called her back and offered her some dollars. However, China refused and asked what she wanted from her. The woman replied that she wanted nothing. China just reminded her of her daughter, whom she had lost 5 years ago. Hearing this, China felt sorry for her. After that, the woman took out her card and gave it to her. That same day, China went to the hospital to talk to her father, even though he couldn't hear her. The next day, she returned to her father's house with Ken, who helped her with her luggage. They chatted for a while before he left. After that, the housemaid came out, overjoyed to see China back again. They hugged for the first time, and the housemaid helped her carry the bags. Then, they both went to prepare something to eat. The following day, China went to work to complete her tasks. Later that afternoon, on her way home, she ran into her ex. They stopped and exchanged greetings, and he asked if he could call her. After that, she left. The next morning, China was seen chatting with the woman she had met at the hotel. They went into a deep conversation. The following day, China had a meeting with her dad's lawyer and the investor. They tried to convince her to sell the hotel if she didn't like it, but she refused. She firmly stated that she couldn't sell it because she wanted to make her father proud for once. After saying this, she left angrily. That same day, she went to the hospital to check on her dad and express how she felt. The next night, Patrick came over to China's house. She offered him a drink, and they chatted. He asked her to consider everything he had been telling her over the phone, expressing that he really wanted her back and had missed her a lot. However, China explained that she needed time because she had a lot on her mind at the moment. Meanwhile, at Ken's bar, his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, came around and pleaded with him to take her back. However, Ken told her that he didn't think they could work things out again because he didn't want to hurt her. He added that they could only be friends. Meanwhile, China was there, watching them before leaving. The next morning, China was already at the hotel for a meeting with the investor and her dad's lawyer. To her surprise, the investor, whom she never thought would be interested in the hotel, gave her a check and a contract to sign, making them official business partners. She was overwhelmed with excitement, and they all shook hands, congratulating her as the new CEO. A few minutes later, she was already at the hospital, her face filled with joy, talking to her father about how she had secured an investor and gotten the company back. The following morning, China arrived at the hotel with a bright smile on her face, looking stunning. Ken called her, and they chatted for a while before she went inside to speak with her staff. The following day, China visited the woman she had met at the hotel. They had a heartfelt conversation, with the woman advising her like a mother, ensuring that China made the right decision in choosing the right partner. The next day, China went to meet Patrick's mom at her office to apologize for her past rude attitude toward her. The day after, she visited her father, chatting with him about the success she had achieved and wishing he had been there to help her make the same decisions. That evening, China went to meet Ken at the bar while he was preparing to go home. Right then and there, they both admitted their feelings for each other and shared a kiss. 6 months later, China was preparing for her wedding and was also pregnant with Ken's child. While getting ready, she received a call from the doctor informing her that her father had just woken up from his coma. Overjoyed, they all hurried to the hospital to see him. Upon arriving at the hospital, China hugged her father, crying with excitement. Everyone was happy, and Chief was delighted to see how much his daughter had grown, even preparing to get married in what felt like the blink of an eye. After that, they all hugged each other, ready to begin a new chapter as a family filled with love and peace. This movie teaches many valuable lessons. It is produced by the amazing RUTH KADIRI, so don't forget to check it out. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our exciting channel and stay tuned for more interesting and educative updates on popular Nigerian movies. All right, guys, see you next time.